The Upanishads in two parts. Part 2, translated by F. Max Muller. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. First Avyaya, fourth Brahmana. In the beginning, this was self alone, in the shape of a person, Purusha. He, looking round, saw nothing but his self. He first said, "This is I." Therefore, he became I by name. Therefore, even now, if a man is asked, he first says, "This is I," and then pronounces the other name which he may have. And because before, Parva, all this, he, the self, burnt down, Ush, all evils. Therefore, he was a person, Purusha. Verily, he who knows this burns down every one who tries to be before him. He feared, and therefore anyone who is lonely fears. He thought, as there is nothing but myself, for what should he have feared? Verily fear arises from a second only, but he feels no delight. Therefore a man who is lonely feels no delight. He wished for a second. He was so large as man and wife together. He then made this his self, to fall into Pat, and thence arose husband, Pate, and wife, Patni. And therefore, Yajnavalkya said, we too are thus, each of us, like half a shell. Therefore, the void which was there is filled by the wife. He embraced her, and men were born. She thought, how can he embrace me? After having produced me from himself, I shall hide myself. She then became a cow. The other became a bull and embraced her, and hence cows were born. The one became a mare, the other a stallion. The one a male donkey, the other a female donkey. He embraced her, and hence one-hoofed animals were born. The one became a she-goat, the other a he-goat. The one became the ewe, the other a ram. He embraced her, and hence goats and sheep were born. And thus he created everything that exists in pairs, down to the ants. He knew, I indeed am this creation, for I created all this, hence he became the creation. And he who knows this lives in this, his creation. Next he thus produced fire by rubbing, from the mouth, as from the fire hole, and from the hands he created fire. Therefore both the mouth and the hands are inside without hair, for the fire hole is inside without hair. And when they say, sacrifice to this or sacrifice to that entity, each entity is but his manifestation, for he is all entities. Now, whatever there is moist, that he created from seed. This is Soma. So far, verily, is this universe either food or eater. Soma indeed is food, Agni eater. This is the highest creation of Brahman, when he created the entities from his better part, and when he who was then mortal created the immortals. Therefore it was the highest creation, and he who knows this lives in this his highest creation. Now all this was then undeveloped. It became developed by form and name, so that one could say, he called so-and-so is such a one. Therefore at present also all this is developed by name and form, so that one can say, he called so-and-so is such a one. He, Brahman, or the self, entered thither to the very tips of the fingernails, as a razor might be fitted in a razor case, or as fire in a fireplace. He cannot be seen, for in part only. When breathing, he is breath by name. When speaking, speech by name. When seeing, eye by name. When hearing, ear by name. When thinking, mind by name. All these are but the names of his acts, and he who worships regards him as the one or the other does not know him, for he is apart from this, unqualified. By the one are the other. Predicate. Let men worship him as self, for in the self all these are one. This self is the footstep of everything, for through it one knows everything, as one can find again by footsteps what was lost. Thus, he who knows this finds glory and praise. This, which is nearer to us than anything, this self is dearer than a son, dearer than wealth, dearer than all else. And if one were to say to one who declares another than self dear, that he will lose what is dear to him, very likely it would be so. Let him worship the self alone as dear. He who worships the self alone as dear, the object of his love, will never perish. Here they say, if men think that by knowledge of Brahman they will become everything, what then did that Brahman know? From whence all this sprang? Verily, in the beginning, this was Brahman. That Brahman knew its self only, saying, I am Brahman. From it all this sprang. Thus, whatever Deva was awakened, so as to know Brahman, he indeed became that Brahman. And the same with riches and men. The Rishi Vamadeva saw and understood singing. I was Manu, moon. I was the sun. Therefore now also he who thus knows that he is Brahman becomes all this, and even the Devas cannot prevent it, for he himself is their self. Now if a man worships another entity, thinking the entity is one and he another, he does not know. He is like a beast for the Devas. For verily, as many beasts nourish a man, thus does every man nourish the Devas. If only one beast is taken away, it is not pleasant. How much more when many are taken? Therefore it is not pleasant to the Devas that men should know this. Verily, in the beginning, this was Brahman, one only. That being one was not strong enough. It created still further the most excellent Kshatra power. Those Kshatras powers among the Devas, Indra, Varuna, Soma, Rudra, Praganya, Yama, Mrityu, Isana. Therefore, there is nothing beyond the Kshatra, and therefore at the Ragasuya sacrifice, the Brahmana sits down below the Kshatriya. He confers that glory on the Kshatra alone, but Brahman is, nevertheless, the birthplace of the Kshatra. Therefore, though a king is exalted, he sits down at the end of the sacrifice, below the Brahman, as his birthplace. He who injures him injures his own birthplace. He becomes worse because he has injured one better than himself. He was not strong enough. He created this people, the classes of Devas, in which their different orders are called Vasus, Rudras, Adityas, Visva, Devas, Maruts. He was not strong enough. He created the Sudra color, caste, as Pushan, nourisher. This earth verily is Pushan, the nourisher. For the earth nourishes all this whatsoever. He was not strong enough. He created still further the most excellent law, Dharma. Law is the Kshatra power of the Kshatra. Therefore, there is nothing higher than the law. Thenceforth, even a weak man rules a stronger with the help of what is called the true. With the help of the law as with the help of a king. Thus the law is what is called the true. And if a man declares what is true, they say he declares the law. And if he declares the law, they say he declares what is true. Thus, both are the same. There are, then, this Brahman, Kshatra, Vith, and Sudra. Among the Devas, that Brahman existed as Agni, fire, only. Among men is Brahmana, as Kshatriya, through the divine Kshatriya, as Vaisya through the divine Vaisya, as Sudra through the divine Sudra. Therefore, people wish for their future state among the Devas through Agni, the sacrificial fire, only, and among men through the Brahmana, for in these two forms did Brahman exist. Now, if a man departs this life without having seen his true future life in the self, then that self, not being known, does not receive and bless him, as if the Veda had not been read, or as if a good work had not been done. Nay, even if one who does not know that self should perform here on earth some great holy work, it will perish for him in the end. Let a man worship the self only as his true state. If a man worships the self only as his true state, his work does not perish, for whatever he desires, that he gets from that self. Now verily this self, of the ignorant man, is the world of all creatures. In so far as man sacrifices and pours out libations, he is the world of the Devas. In so far as he repeats the hymns, and so on, he is the world of the Rishis. In so far as he offers cakes to the fathers and tries to obtain offspring, he is the world of the fathers. In so far as he gives shelter and food to men, he is the world of men. In so far as he finds fodder and water for the animals, he is the world of the animals. In so far as quadrupeds, birds, and even ants live in his house, he is their world. And as everyone wishes his own world would not be injured, thus all beings wish that he who knows this should not be injured. Verily, this is known and has been well reasoned. In the beginning, this was self alone, one only. He desired, let there be a wife for me that I may have offspring, and let there be wealth for me that I may offer sacrifices. Verily, this is the whole desire, and even if wishing for more, he would not find it. Therefore, now also a lonely person desires, let there be a wife for me that I may have offspring, and let there be wealth for me that I may obtain that I may offer sacrifices. And so long as he does not obtain either of these things, he thinks he is incomplete. Now his completeness is made up as follows. Mind is his self, husband, speech the wife, breath the child, the eye, all worldly wealth, for he finds it with eye, the ear his divine wealth, for he hears it with the ear, the body, Atman, is his work, for with the body he works. This is the fivefold sacrifice, for the fivefold is the animal, fivefold man, fivefold all his whatsoever. He who knows this obtains all this. Fivefold is consisting of mind, speech, breath, eye, and ear. See the Taittiriya Upanishad 1.7.1 is a comment listed here related to verse 17. And one of the things is that if we have issues and we try to externalize towards other creations this idea of a deity rather than working with ourselves, or then what's enjoyed by all. Okay, I don't. There's a note here. Well, the commentator says that the world of all creatures. So see, when you don't divide things and over personify things and detach yourself from things, then one's worshipful acts or consciousness is actually for the sake of all created things. And in verse 12, we observe a change from tad, it, to sa, he. And in verse 14, the kshatriya, more powerful than the kshatriya, a warrior class. So again, the power beyond these things. We talk about the master, or the hierophant, or some other official, the master's the Hierophant, but you know what I mean. We talk about the emperor, the Hierophant, or some other official, like when we turn to the tarot. But what we really should be doing is looking at the power and the principle beyond whatever figure is operating this. In verse 8, who worships the self alone as dear, the object of his love will never perish. On Ruth to lose, see Taittiriya Samhita 2685, page 765, 771, as pointed out by Dr. Boetlingik on Iftharo Yat. Tapa Iba Siat, see Boetlingik. Recipe. And who knows everything? Verse 7 here. As one finds lost cattle again by following their footsteps, thus one finds everything if one has found out the self. And this is what the commentator says. And by the commentator, I mean, I don't mean Max Muller. The Kautika Brahmana Upanishad 6:19. Also in verse 7, talking about the fireplace and the mortal. In verse 6, as man and sacrificer, and the better part when he created the best entities. So, like this talk about the three worlds, the fire beings, the light beings, and the clay beings. Obviously, the light beings were listed as the Devi, or listed as of the higher part. And created fire, verse 6, he blew with his mouth while he rubbed with his hands. And again, in this part, we're more explicitly identifying the body and one's sense of the external as, closer to the real thing. In the reading in verse 4, the reading Avir Itaro, i.e. Itara is not found in the Kanva text. See Boetlingik Krestomati, page 357. And we too are thus, each of us like half a shell, in verse 3. The commentator explains Savah by Atmanah of himself, but see Boetlingik Sanskrit Krestomati, page 357. Brewer translates, therefore was this only one half of himself, as a split pea is of a whole. Brigala is half of anything. Muller, original Sanskrit text, volume 1, page 25, translates, Yajnavalkya has said that this one's self is like the half of a split pea. I've translated the sentence according to Professor Boetlingik's conjecture, Krestomati, second edition, page 357, though the singular after the dual, Savah, is irregular. And there's a lot of Hindi-based stuff that's old and good that I can go over in the future, especially if I get old and am unable to come up with other content. At least I can still present stuff, right? And in verse, this fourth Brahmana is called the Purusha Vidya Brahmana Madhyandana Sakha, page 1050. See Muir's original Sanskrit text, volume 1, page 24.